85 degrees with the best ride. In and out of the city, I'm Ymca, Bloomberg 1130. Bloomberg Business Week continues.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston. Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco. Bloomberg 960. To the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Hey, it's a Bloomberg Business Week. Tim Stenovec live in the Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Well, it's not quite wedding season, but it's wedding planning season. And if you're at all like me, you've been getting quite a few invitations or maybe even attending quite a few weddings over the last few months that were, well, rescheduled from during the pandemic. We're going to talk weddings and more in just a few minutes with Tim Chi, the CEO of the Knot Worldwide. He's going to join us on the other side of a check from Charlie Pellet, who I know is standing by right now to give us an update on everything happening after hours.
A lot going on today. Where was the love on Wall Street? Certainly not for the bulls, with the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all declining today. But before we get to the numbers, just want to bring you a couple of other developing after-hours stories. Apple halting product sales in Russia following the country's invasion of Ukraine. Also, Ford Motor saying it is suspending operations in Russia around the world and pulling back following the country's invasion of Ukraine. HP Enterprise increased its annual profit forecast amid strong demand for the hardware maker's products, especially tools to process data, the point of origination. Salesforce.com shares, they are pushing higher after hours. It is forecasting revenue for the first quarter with that guidance beating the average analyst estimates. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, steep losses today. A surge in oil sending shivers through risky assets. Oil, by the way, West Texas Intermediate now up 10.3%, up $9.85 a barrel, 105.57. Brent, the global benchmark, up at 106.68, higher today by 8.9%. 10-year yield 1.71%. We've got S&P lower by 67, down 1.5%. The Dow down 597, a drop there of 1.8%. The Nasdaq Composite Index down 219, a drop there of 1.6%. Spot gold up today by 1.8%, $19.42 the ounce. Bitcoin up 5.5%, 43,932 on Bitcoin. So a down day for the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ. Ella Hocha is Senior Investment Manager at Peak Day Asset Management. And right here on the Bloomberg Business Week, she told us she understands why people are moving into cash.
We would clearly recommend sort of investments in typical safe havens or sort of treasuries, gold, cash. They're good places to hold money now. Although we have been, for us from our end, we have been increasing our cash holdings for the funds that we've managed for our clients as well. Cash is not a bad place to be.
And again, recapping S&P down by 1.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you so much for that update, Charlie Pellet. Well, as I mentioned, we're not quite at wedding season yet. We're at what's called wedding planning season. But maybe you've gotten some invitations to some long postponed weddings that are hopefully going to take place in person in the coming year. Let's get into it with Tim Chi, the CEO of the Knot Worldwide. It includes brands like the Knot, Wedding Wire, the Bump, the Bash, and more. Tim joins us on the phone from Bethesda, Maryland. Tim, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show, Tim.
So give us an update on how weddings are going in 2022. Are we back to levels of pre-pandemic 2019 yet?
Yeah, so the wedding industry is experiencing a wedding boom. We just ran a recent real wedding study, and they are definitely have shifted back to pre-pandemic levels. In fact, we're expecting 2.6 million weddings to happen this year, compared to a normal 2.2 million.
So, and what do we know about how couples have? We talked about a year ago. We were talking about quote unquote revenge spending after being cooped up for so long, going out and spending money on ourselves and buying ourselves things. I'm wondering if we're seeing that reflected when it comes to weddings as well.
We are. So a couple of points there. First, confidence for couples is very high right now. 75% of couples who got engaged in 21 have already set their dates in 2022. And unlike 2020, when the pandemic hit, where most weddings were postponed, only a small percentage of couples need to change their wedding date right now. What that's translating to is pent-up demand to get back and celebrate with families and friends. So we are seeing spend tick up as well. Average guest counts are going up, and even guests themselves who are really anxious and excited to be able to get back in with friends and family are willing to spend more. Our recent survey indicated that 90% of guests that are planning to attend upcoming weddings are willing to spend more than they normally would.
How are these weddings different than pre-pandemic? I think back to the one wedding that I've been to during the pandemic. It was in June of 2021. It was that, short period of time, the 2 months where I think everybody in the United States felt like we were on the other side of this pandemic before the Delta variant hit. And there were still changes there. Every event we did was outside. Unfortunately, the weather was good, but they had permanent tents set up that, they gave me the impression, hey, we're going to be doing outdoor weddings for a long time.
Well, certainly, there's the regulation aspect around what can and can't be done, from a social gathering perspective and travel as well. That largely is, trending in a very positive direction here in the U.S. The other thing, though, that we don't expect to change anytime soon is just people's sentiment around health and safety, right? 81% of couples will still implement at least one health and safety measure on their wedding day, hand sanitizer, requiring staff to wear a mask, and they're really thinking about their guests and how to make the event, safe for all.
I'm wondering what you can tell us about the other brands included in the Knot Worldwide. I think a lot of people are familiar with the Knot and perhaps get, into the Knot Worldwide family of brands through the Knot. But you also include Bodas in Latin America, Hitched, The Bump, The Bash, How They Asked, and more in the Knot Worldwide family of brands. How do you keep people who find out about you through the Knot? How do you stay with them throughout different milestones in their lives?
Sure. So thank you for asking that question. I mean, first of all, the Knot Worldwide is we're a portfolio of companies, right? And we offer digital wedding planning resources and all-in-one wedding planning for lots of couples all around the world. In fact, we're active in 16 countries. So some of those brands like Bodas and Matrimonio that you mentioned are similar versions of the Knot brand, but in Spain and throughout Latin America, Europe, Asia as well. And then for some of our other brands as well, like you mentioned, The Bump, that's one of the leading sites for expecting parents as well. What we really do and think about here at the Knot Worldwide is just how can we help, and our mission really is centers just to really help couples navigate life's most important moments, and we have a lot of brands that support that.
Tim, I got to ask about the future of the company. This is a company that people might be familiar with from when it was XO Group, a publicly held company. It's now a private company. What's the future of the Knot Worldwide? Staying private, going public?
Yeah, so, right now, all options are on the table for us. Just to give you a little bit of a sense, we're sort of north of $300 million annually in revenue. We've been growing profitably for many consecutive years now. So just we think about financing opportunities in the future, we'll keep all options at the table. Right now for us, though, we're going to just continue to focus on delivering the best products and services to our engaged couples and connecting them to all the right wedding professionals to help them pull off that big special day.
Tim Shee is Chief Executive Officer of the Knot Worldwide, joining us on the phone from Bethesda, Maryland. Tim, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us on Bloomberg Business Week. Let's head from New York to Washington, D.C. for a check of the latest world and national news. Nancy Lyons is standing by. Hey, Nancy.
Thanks, Tim. Russian forces are not easing up in Ukraine and are targeting populated urban areas like the capital Kyiv and the country's second largest city, Kharkiv. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says no one will forget Moscow's blatant campaign of terror. Earlier in the day, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken warned of a humanitarian crisis if Russia continues what he describes as its premeditated, unprovoked, and unjustified attack on Ukraine. He's questioning whether Russia should even be allowed to stay on the UN Human Rights Council.
One can reasonably ask whether a UN member state that tries to take over another UN member state while committing horrific human rights abuses and causing massive humanitarian suffering should be allowed to remain on this council.
Secretary of State Blinken told other members of the council the violations of human rights are mounting by the hour. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also spoke to the Human Rights Council, prompting about 100 diplomats to walk out, led by Ukraine's ambassador. President Biden will be giving his first State of the Union speech tonight, and Russia's aggression is expected to be a new feature of the address. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell today gave a pre-buttal on what President Biden will say.
I think there's broad support for the president and what he's doing now. Our biggest complaint is What took him so long?
McConnell says leveling the sanctions earlier might have deterred Russian aggression. President Biden is also expected to highlight the improving outlook on the coronavirus and the need to lower costs for families facing rising inflation. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
Thank you so much for that update, Nancy Lyons. Well, some 1,700 Ukrainian students are enrolled in U.S. universities. Watching the attack on their homeland is particularly wrenching from afar. Bloomberg's Janet Wu sat down with Boston University senior Masha Lazu. Her mother and younger brother were forced to flee the country, while her dad stayed behind to defend their home. Here's a portion of that conversation.
My dad is near Kiev. He refused to leave. My dad is also with our grandma. He's also hosting a lot of neighbors with children because we're the only ones who have a basement where you can actually hide from bombing. My mom and my brother just crossed the border with Moldova.
How did they get there?
When Russian troops were not near Kiev yet, they just started driving, and the traffic jams were crazy.
I cannot imagine how difficult it was for your mom and your brother to leave your father.
I know she's very worried, and I'm also very worried. I text him all the time, and I just look how long ago he was online on like Facebook or Messenger to kind of, see what's going on.
Masha, the world is inspired by the resolve that we are seeing from the Ukrainian citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Does this surprise you what they are doing to defend the homeland?
I'm not surprised because we always wanted to be independent and not Russia and not Soviet Union. There's no country in the world where patriotism is as high as in Ukraine.
Wow, that was 21-year-old Masha Lazu, who studies biomedical engineering at Boston University. She was last in Ukraine in December. A big thank you to Bloomberg's Janet Wu for that report. Well, coming up in just a few minutes, we are talking diversity in the boardroom and diversity in corporations. You're listening to Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg. The Tri-State Business Report is brought to you by Audi. Don't let someone else drive off in the Audi model you've always wanted. Visit a Tri-State Audi dealer to get behind the wheel of yours today.
Tonight, starting at 8:30,
America stands up for freedom.
Bloomberg brings you live coverage of President Biden's State of the Union address, hosted by Joe Matthew.
We will continue to support the Ukrainian people.
The president addresses the nation as the conflict with Russia deepens.
The United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power.
The State of the Union address. Coverage begins tonight, starting at 8:30 on Bloomberg 1130 and Bloomberg Television.
This is a Bloomberg Tri-State Business Report. Luxury fashion brand Hermes International is moving its U.S. headquarters to a building on Manhattan's Madison Avenue that's being redeveloped. The Paris-based designer is taking more than 71,000 square feet of offices at 550 Madison Avenue. The lease is for all of the space in the tower's 23rd through 25th floors. Citigroup's decided to change course on holding Wednesday's Investor Day meeting in person. The decision comes after two members of senior management tested positive for COVID-19. They say a virtual format is the right decision given the current circumstances. Bayonne, New Jersey-based Royal Wine will donate 100% of its proceeds through March 10th from two of its vodka brands to the aid organization Emergency Ukraine. Also Monday, Total Wine & More, a Maryland chain with many New Jersey stores, said it yanked Russian products from its shelves. That's your Bloomberg Tri-State Business Report. I'm Ed Corey.
The Audi Q5 represents everything we've learned from building one of the world's most progressive vehicles. With forward-thinking technology like standard rear cross traffic assist, this car was born to non-conform. The Audi Q5 is here. Progress is never blending in.
Don't let someone else drive off in the Audi model you've always wanted. Visit your tri-state area Audi dealer to get behind the wheel of yours today, or visit AudiOffers.com for more information.
It's 4:45 on Wall Street. Time for drive time traffic. We do it every 15 minutes right here on Bloomberg Radio. Ed Kalegi, the FDR. What's going on there?
FDR northbound at the Brooklyn Bridge, Tim. There's a flipped over car, and you wonder how that happened with the traffic moving so slowly, but it did. So there it is in one lane, and traffic is very slow coming up from the Battery. It stays slow all the way up the east side, and then tack on another 20 minutes to accomplish the Harlem River Drive, the west side. That brings no help right now because it's a very heavy ride itself. 60s on up southbound. There's an accident in the 80s. Cross Bronx, broken down car southbound Jerome Avenue. It's at least 40 minutes from there back to the Bruckner interchange. Outbound Holland Tunnel a half hour. 10 in from 1 and 9. 20 minutes out over at the Lincoln Tunnel. Looks like the ride in New Jersey. 280 on the westbound side. An accident by exit 4. Bloomberg 11:30. 3-day weather tonight. Cloudy skies. Low 35 to 40. Wednesday sunny skies. High near 50. Thursday partly sunny. High around 40. Friday sunshine. High 35 to 40. Right now in Central Park, skies are partly cloudy. The temperature 45 degrees. Join Panera's Unlimited Sip Club and get unlimited coffee for only $8.99 a month. Sign up on the Panera app today and get 3 months free. Panera, the familiar made fantastic. Availability and pricing may vary with the best ride in and out of the city. I'm Ed Kalegi, Bloomberg 11:30. Bloomberg Business Week continues.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. After the bell, we heard from Salesforce.com. They are based in San Francisco. Salesforce delivering a forecast for quarterly and annual revenue that did exceed analyst estimates as the leader in customer relations software further integrates Slack and expands its product line after hours. Shares of Salesforce up by 4%. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise is increasing its annual profit forecast amid strong demand for the hardware maker's products, especially tools to process data at the point of origination. After hours, HPE up by 1.8%. Apple halting product sales in Russia following the country's invasion of Ukraine, saying the company, quote, stands with all of the people who are suffering as a result of the violence. After hours, Apple down by 1.1%. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, another day of losses with the S&P down 1.5%, falling 67 points. The Dow down 597, lower by 1.8%. At one point, the Dow was down 784 points. NASDAQ ended with a loss of 219 points, down 1.6%. 10-year yield now 1.70%. Spot gold up 1.8%, 19.43 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude surging 10.9%, 106.16. Brent up 9.5%, 107.